All right. Good evening. It's good to see everyone here tonight. Sorry I'm not Ben. He's traveling, so you're stuck with me again. So we'll have to work through it tonight. And he left me with another easy one, another easy topic. So Proverbs. So, but anyway, we will make it through it. So this is lesson 5 in the book of Proverbs. And before we get started, though, we're going to have a word of prayer. I'd like to ask Brother Keith, if you would, lead us in that word of prayer.
Almighty and gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening, acknowledging you as a creator of all and the giver of all things. We ask you, Father, that you be with us this evening as Spirit Christians as we get into this study. We pay attention to the things that are brought to our attention, that we would study these things, we would look to your word, to see that the things we're saying are true to your word and they are a benefit to our knowledge of your word. Help us to be responsible for these things throughout the world and live a life that would teach your word and use our mouths in ways such as we could teach your word as well. Help us to be kind to one another, look out for one another. As always, remember that you're the creator and the giver of all things. Help us through this hour, keep our minds focused on what we're here to do. So our worship may be good to you. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Anything stand out to you tonight as you were studying for this lesson tonight from the book of Proverbs?
Yeah, what it says up there, has no sense.
Yeah.
With me was I recognized a lot of the chapters and verses, and I think a lot of us do, but the big problem is after we read all of them is application.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the whole study came to be the application.
I think in our Bible lesson, what does he say there at the beginning about the verses that apply to adultery and sexual sin, I guess? How many are there?
He said more.
Yeah.
More than the rest of it.
Really, it's more. In this book, there's more, verse for verse, there's more devoted to this than any other topic, right? In this book. I thought that was interesting. But yet, when you really start looking at it, there are a lot of verses in it. And we're not going to have time to go through all of them, but we're going to go through a lot of them tonight. Okay, we're going to look at them and just kind of see. But I want to ask you a question. Okay, why do we need to worry about sexual sin? I mean, right? I mean, people in the world, it's not a big deal, right? I mean, it's just a natural desire that we have, and God wants us to be happy, right? And what's the problem? Why?
Just in the news today, there was some senator woman that came forward with big letter A on her shirt, and she was, I guess it was like bragging, said, I had to leave the man in my bed so I can come here and vote on it. I guess she was complaining she had to interrupt her days off or something other, because they had to vote a Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
But how far can our own political representatives, they're not very good examples of cultures.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Start off with monogamy. The family structure is destroyed if we don't have it. I know I can go down some more, but I think I would start with that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We are bombarded with it regularly. Whether it's media, radio, TV, people you work with, people you come in contact with every day.
Yeah,
Somewhere or another,
it's everywhere. Yeah, that's right.
you're going to be
In our country, but why we need to be worried about it?
Keep you out of heaven.
Okay, I heard it keep me out of heaven. Someone else said something?
Because it is everywhere.
Yeah, it is everywhere. That's right.
No, like that's why you have to worry about it. Like you have
Yeah.
to actively, proactively
Mm-hmm.
protect yourself, teach your children, like guards, safeguards everywhere.
Yeah.
Things you wouldn't even expect.
Yes, it is everywhere. you know, Solomon tells us over and over and over again, okay? It will destroy you. Okay? It seems like a wonderful thing, right? It seems natural and seems like, oh yeah, yes, but in the end it will destroy you. There are 3 chapters in the book of Proverbs that he hits. Proverbs chapter 5, and I got this from one man said that Proverbs chapter 5, he says one point out of this is that sexual sin is eventually disappointing. Chapter 6, sexual sin is gradually destructive. And then chapter 7 of Proverbs, sexual sin is ultimately deadly. So I want to tell you, not too long ago, and I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget to do it, but sometimes you get up here and you kind of get, start thinking about things and I forget. But not too long ago, I preached a sermon in East Tennessee, and it was about sexual temptation. They had asked me to come and preach where I went to college, and they said if you could go back, your younger self and tell your younger self something, the things you've learned, over the years, what would you tell yourself? And my topic was about sexual temptation. And so I went and talked, and did this and that. And after a service, a man came up to me, an older man. And he came up to me and he introduced himself to me and he said, I'm a put-away adulterer. And I've been preaching long enough now that sometimes you don't know what anybody's going to say when they come up to you after a sermon, right? They can say anything. But that was the first time I'd ever had that hit me, and it just kind of, And then he started telling me. Okay, this man was a preacher of the gospel for many years. And he told me, he said, I used to preach this same type of sermon. And he said, and I knew, he goes, I'm not, and this is the way he said it, I'm not trying to brag. He said, but I knew those passages. I had them memorized. He said, but I didn't guard my heart. He told me he lost everything. He lost all of his family. He lost everything that in his life. Now he had asked for forgiveness, right? And he was worshiping there, and he had forgiven. But he said, I've lost everything. He broke down talking to me. Of course, I don't know what to say. I didn't know what to say to him. I mean, I was happy that he was repentant and he had turned from that. But he's basically telling me, and I remember what he told me. He said, everywhere you go, you need to preach that sermon. Everybody needs to hear it. Because nobody is exempt from it. It can happen to anybody at any time. So I want us to think about some things tonight. These are going to be from these 3 chapters, chapter 5, 6, and 7. I want you to notice how he begins the topic, how he begins talking about it in each chapter. Solomon begins. Notice what he says. First of all, chapter 5, verse 1. My son, be attentive to my wisdom. Incline your ear to my understanding, that you may keep discretion, that your lips may guard knowledge. Okay? He's basically saying, listen up, pay attention. Okay? Pay attention. It's almost like he's saying, I've been there. I've been where you are right now. I know the temptations that you are being faced with. I know what's going on. He says you need to pay attention. You need to listen. And then he starts talking about the lips of a loose woman. Chapter 6. Now, chapter 6, you can kind of go through, look, but the end of that chapter is kind of when it starts hitting that subject. Verse 20 beginning. My son, keep your father's commandment. Forsake not your mother's teaching. Bind them upon your heart always. Tie them about your neck. When you walk, they will lead you. When you lie down, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will talk to you or with you. For the commandment is a lamp and the teaching a light. The reproofs of discipline are the way of life. Listen, to preserve you from the evil woman, from the smooth tongue of the adventurous. Now, before we get too far in this, okay, someone says, well, how come it's just, he's warning his son, he's talking about just a bad woman. Well, there's some bad men too. Well, yes, there are, okay? But Solomon was a man, and he's approaching this as he's talking to his sons. The reverse applies as well, okay? It could be that the same thing applies for the woman, okay? The woman, you can say, beware of the loose man. Okay, so please don't get in mind, don't think, oh, he's just bashing on the bad women. No. Okay, it's a two-way street. Okay, but remember, Solomon he's speaking wisdom. It's like he's speaking to his children, okay, to his sons. So that's chapter 6. Look at chapter 7, verses 1 through 5, the beginning, okay, of this topic. My son, keep my words, treasure my commands within you. Keep my commands and live, and my law is the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers, write them on the tablet of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your nearest kin, that they may keep you from the immoral woman, from the seductress who flatters with her words. So what do you get out of these first verses as he begins the sermon? What is he saying? What's going to help keep the son from getting into trouble?
Wisdom. The wisdom of the Lord God.
Yeah.
That they've been instructed in the wisdom. They just got to listen to the wisdom.
Yeah. The things, wisdom? What's the other word you see in all of them? Or most of them there? Understanding? Yeah. Your heart, bind your heart. What else? Notice he says the commandment, guard knowledge. The commandment is a lamp and the teaching a light. Okay? It's important to listen and follow this wisdom. Okay? It's there for our benefit, to help. Okay? To help. To preserve us. That's right. We do not have to learn everything the hard way. Okay? I try to teach my children that. I want to pound it in their head. You don't have to learn everything the hard way. Okay? Some things, yeah, you're just going to learn by going through it, right? You know what I'm saying? But you don't have to do everything by that. And he's saying, listen, pay attention. Okay, pay attention to this. Don't let it just go in one ear and out the other. Oh, that's the old man talking. He don't know what he's talking about. In fact, in chapter 6, he even says, keep your father's command and forsake not your mother's teaching. Okay, he's even saying, listen to her too. She's teaching the same thing. She's going to tell you this too. Listen, pay attention. Okay. Chapter 7, okay, back to chapter 7 now, we'll begin verse 7. Notice what he says. In chapter 6, he says, hey, I looked out my lattice. Okay, I took it all because I didn't have a whole lot of things. He looked out my lattice and I saw the simple man. I saw the foolish man. And then what is he doing? Okay? I've seen among the simple, I've perceived among the youths, a young man without sense, passing along the street near her corner, taking the road to her house in the twilight, in the evening, at the time of night and darkness. And lo, a woman meets him, dressed as a harlot, wily of heart. She's loud and wayward. Her feet do not stay at home. Now in the street, now in the market, and at every corner she lies in wait. She seizes him and kisses him. And with impudent face, she says to him, we'll stop there for a second. So what are some of the things you pick out right here? What do we pick out? First of all, about the man. What do you see about the man here? Yeah, I mean, notice what it says. Notice what it says. He's passing along the street near her corner. Says, well, maybe he's got to go that way to work. Maybe, he just got to, deal with it. But he's taking the road to her house in the twilight. He's working the night shift. That's what it is, right? He must be working the night shift. No. He's not going to work. Okay? He's got something else on his mind, right? Okay, he's looking for trouble.
His mind is not on the destruction of his soul.
No, that's the last thing on his mind, right? That's right. So he's just kind of walking along, right? And he's walking in a place he shouldn't be walking. And a place, and at a time he shouldn't be walking there. Okay? Now, what about this woman? What kind of woman are we talking about here? Maybe she's just, is she surprised, right? Something like this would ever happen? That, what kind of person is this woman?
She looks the part. He should have known from appearances.
Well, notice that Solomon's telling, now think about it, this is Solomon telling his son, this is what I saw. I saw this, I'm looking through my last one. There's a woman that meets him, and she's dressed in a way that she shouldn't be dressed.
Could we
I'm sorry?
move from this to go back to his
Okay, go back to his.
lacking sense?
Okay.
Go back to 6:32. It says there, he who commits adultery lacks sense. He's already set the precedent of lacking sense means he does this as a habit.
Yep.
And now he's just not putting all that in there. He's just saying, here's one that lacks sense. Here is his habits.
Yep.
And so we should conclude from that. He's making this a habit. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Yeah, that's a good point. So she's dressing the part. She looks, okay, it says she's wily of heart. She's loud and wayward. Her feet do not stay at home. I don't know what else to say to that. It's pretty much self-explanatory, right? We understand. Okay, they're both looking for trouble. Okay?
If it's not this young man, it'll be the next one that comes along.
That's right. That's right. Because notice, look, now in the street, now in the market, at every corner she lies in wait. Well, she's waiting. Okay? She's waiting for the simple man. She's waiting for the one, okay? She seizes him and kisses him. And with impudent face, she says to him, all right, here we go. Go to the next verses, 14 to 21. She says, I had to offer sacrifices, and today I've paid my vows, and so now I've come out to meet you, to seek you eagerly, and I have found you. I have decked my couch with coverings, colored spreads of Egyptian linen. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. I underlined that. We'll come back to that. Don't let me forget that. Come, let us take our fill of love till morning. Let us delight ourselves with love. For my husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey. He took a bag of money with him, and at full moon he will come home. In other words, it's going to be many days before he comes home. With much seductive speech, she persuades him, and her smooth talk, she compels him. Okay, I want you to notice, let's notice some lies, okay, from the adulteress right here. Lie number one. She said, man, I'm not a bad person. Okay, I had to offer sacrifices today. And I paid my vows today. I'm a good person. Now, the verses before, okay, now I'm dressing very provocatively, and I'm standing on the street corner, and I grabbed her, I grabbed you, and I'm aggressive and all these things, everything, but I'm a good person. Okay, I'm not a bad person. I've done these things. I'm a religious person. Okay, I kept my vows. Lie number 2. She says, this is going to be fun. She says, come, let us take our fill of love till morning. Let us delight ourselves with love. She says, man, this is great. She goes, this is not going to be something that's dirty or something that's, we're not going to a cheap hotel. She goes, you come to my house. She goes, I've decked my couch with coverings, colored spreads of Egyptian linen. Oh, this is going to be nice. This is going to be great. This is going to be fun. You don't have to wait. We're going to have fun right now. You're not going to have to worry about anything. That's lie number 2. Lie number 3, nothing bad will happen. Okay? Nothing. You don't have to worry about anything. My husband, okay, by the way, men, this is for married and those that are not married. As soon as she said, my husband, that should have been the thing to run. Okay, that should have been the thing to get out of there. Okay? Because she has a husband. Okay, now obviously if you're married, you have a wife. Okay, so you don't need to be there anyway. But the point is, she even tells him, oh, my husband is gone. He's not at home. He's gone on a long journey. Nothing bad's going to happen. Everything's going to be fine. Okay, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have fun all night. And you don't have to worry about anything. Okay, let's go back to this right here. She says, I perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon.
That doesn't even sound like it smells good.
So there was what I've read, there was a mixture in this. Now this man didn't even know where he's going, okay? But back in that time, there was a mixture of that, and they would use a mixture similar to this as embalming fluid. He's going to his death, and he doesn't even know it. He doesn't even recognize it. You think about that.
Well, it just adds to my thinking that a lot of this is symbolic. I first suspected it being symbolic when it says she's at every corner.
Yeah.
But this kind of adds to it too.
Okay. So the promise of adultery. Chapter 5 and verse 3, the false promise is, the lips of a loose woman drip honey. Her speech is smoother than oil. It makes you think, oh, this is going to be wonderful, right? Nothing bad's going to happen. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to do this. Oh, it's going to be great. But you know what the real promise is? Verses 4 through 6 of chapter 5. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps follow the path to Sheol. She does not take heed to the path of life. Her ways wander, and she does not know it. Okay? That goes back, and she says, hey, nothing bad's going to happen. Okay? And he's saying, you don't realize her ways will lead down to death. Death. The price of adultery. You see, nobody thinks about this part. All they're thinking about are those lies. Right? Oh, this is going to be wonderful. This is going to be so much fun. She's not a bad person. Okay? And nothing bad's going to happen. That's all that man was thinking about.
In 5 verse 6,
Mm-hmm.
in the literal version, it says that she doesn't even know. Her
Yeah.
ways are unstable, and she doesn't even know.
Yeah. Doesn't even know it. So the price of adultery. Before we get this, what do you think I guess the question is there a price to adultery? What's some of the price?
Loss of honor,
Loss of honor.
probably high possibility of physical diseases, loss of family, like you pointed out, but on a whole list of the danger of the husband showing up too early. That can happen. We read about it in the news a lot.
The guilt,
Which would
like
be loss
David.
of life.
Loss of life. Guilt.
Guilt, like David said, my sins are ever.
Yeah.
Can you put a ladder over your soul?
No, you can't. That's exactly right. You think about, he gives us a few right here. Okay, this is not all of them. We can just keep going all night. He said it can cost you your wealth. He says, keep your way far from her and do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others and your years to the merciless, lest strangers take their fill of your strength and your labors go to the house of an alien. All the things you worked for, all the things, when that family split, guess what? Your money's going over there. Your money's going over there to them. At the end of your life, you groan when your flesh and body are consumed. Possibly they're talking about disease, right? That can happen, okay, because, man, he's having fun, right? And it might be one woman tonight, another woman tomorrow night, and another next, and guess what? He's got all kinds of problems. You think if that woman, if she had had some kind of disease, you think she'd be on there, have a sign on there telling everybody, hey, I got a disease, come on, right? No. It can cost your physical health. It can cost your mental health. He says, when you say, how I hated discipline, and my heart despised reproof. Now notice what he says. I did not listen. This is going to be the guy that's living the end of his life with regret. He says, I did not listen to the voice of my teacher or incline my ear to my instructors. I was at the point of utter ruin in the assembled congregation. Think about the price of adultery. What about some consequences as we keep going there? Chapter 6, verse 25 through 29. Chapter 6, 25 through 29. He says, do not desire her beauty in your heart, and do not let her capture you with her eyelashes. For a harlot may be hired for a loaf of bread, but an adulteress stalks a man's very life. Can a man carry fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Or can one walk upon hot coals and his feet not be scorched? So is he who goes into his neighbor's wife. None who touches her will go unpunished. None who touches her will go unpunished. Comments on these verses. There's a lot of things we can pull out of these verses. I don't want to do all the talking. Come on, help me out.
Another one that puts the wealth of a man in children that can be produced in that aren't his.
Yeah,
That's another one.
that's another potential consequence there, isn't it? That's right. What do you think about the verse there? Can a man carry fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burned? So what was a fire used for back in that time?
Sacrifice for one thing.
Cook, sacrifice, but heat, right? You know, it was used for heat as well, right? In a home. You know, when I was growing up, we, at least It'll burn you. What's the point that he's trying to say?
Can't play with fire. Adultery. You can't play with adultery.
Yeah. Is God saying here that sex between a man and a woman's wrong and that, you shouldn't be doing it?
No, absolutely. And that's
No.
the biggest problem. It's a good thing when it's done properly.
That's right.
Fornication comes in. That makes it bad, and that's what I see a lot of the inclination to try to cause people to be sexually immoral. Is it what's natural? Is your body's natural functions? Why are you holding those back?
The reason I brought that up about the fire, right? Inherently, there's nothing wrong with fire. Fire's good, right? It can help. It can cook, right? You can offer the sacrifices. It can heat your home. It can heat you up there. But yet, if it's used in the wrong way, it can burn you. It can kill you.
I keep thinking of the New Testament verse that says, if you burn for one another, again using fire, then get married, it says.
Yeah. Burn in passion. Yes. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I can relate to that fire in the bosom and being burned as this person on the day of judgment. They're going to be sent to hell.
Yeah. That's the ultimate, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Can one walk upon hot coals and his feet not be scorched? So is he who goes into his neighbor's wife. None who touches her will go unpunished. I put this little thing down at the bottom there. Adultery is stealing. What does that mean?
Take it from another man, that's frankly his, or another woman.
Taking something that doesn't belong to you.
It should be something precious.
Something that doesn't belong to you. And it applies both ways, okay? Please make sure you understand that. It applies both ways. Any more comments on this?
Keep thinking about that man you talked about, that you preached about too. That said he knew all the verses.
Yeah.
What's to stop someone from going as far as that man did? You can only prepare yourself to recognize and prepare yourself to withstand. What are the kind of preparations that you do?
I want you to think about good point. Think about the verses we read at the beginning. The father's talking to his son. And he says, listen, pay attention. Don't go near her house. Don't go by the way. Don't do this. There are some, guys, ladies and gentlemen, okay, there are some sins that you cannot reason with. You cannot say, you know what, let's just have a philosophical discussion about this and about this and that. There are some things, some passions, some things that you cannot play with. And this is one of them. This is one of them.
It could be words. It could be kissing. I mean, we read what the woman did.
That's right.
Chapter 5, verse 15 says, drink from your own cistern.
Yep. We're about to get to there. Hang on one second. That's a good point. He's ahead of me. But yeah, that's exactly right. We're going to talk about what that means. Real quickly, I know you can't read all that. There's a man who wrote down 40 consequences of adultery. I know you can't read it. I'm going to read through some of them real quick. Some things that happen if you commit adultery. My relationship with God would suffer from a break in fellowship. I would need to seek forgiveness from my Lord. I would suffer from the emotional consequences of guilt. I would spend countless hours replaying the failure My wife would suffer the scars of this abuse more deeply than I could begin to describe. My wife would spend countless hours in counseling. My wife's recovery would be long and painful. Her pain would grieve me deeply and compound my own suffering and shame. Our relationship would suffer a break in trust, fellowship, and intimacy. We would be together, yet feel great loneliness. The reputation of my family would suffer loss. My sons would be deeply disappointed and bewildered. My grandchildren would not understand. My friends would be disappointed and would question my integrity. I would lose my job at church. My witness among neighbors would become worthless. My witness to my brother would be worthless. My testimony among my wife's family would be damaged. I might never be employed by a church again. Might never be in men's ministry leadership. I would suffer God's discipline. Satan would be thrilled at my failure. Satan would work overtime to be sure my shame never departed. My wife might divorce me. My children might never speak to me. Our mutual friends would shy away from us and break fellowship. I would bring emotional pain to the woman. I would bring reproach upon the woman. If the woman is married, her husband might attempt to bring harm. He might divorce her. An unwanted child could be produced. My part in conception might trigger an abortion, the killing of an innocent child. Disease might result. Some might conclude that all Christians are hypocrites. My business could fail because I couldn't be trusted. My leadership among those I've led in the past might also be diminished in impact. My zeal for ministry would suffer and possibly result in others not continuing in ministry. My health would suffer. I might have to start life over again. The same sin might be visited upon my family for 4 generations. Boy, when you read through all that, that's a lot of consequences for just a few moments of pleasure. Here's a question for you. In the Bible, we read accounts of Joseph and we read accounts of David. They both were tempted with sexual sin. What was the difference between Joseph and David? Would you say, well, maybe David just didn't know better, and Joseph did, or Joseph was smarter than David, and David, even though the Bible says David was a man after God's own heart, and, he was, can't get much smarter than David, and can't, and all the things. What was the difference between Joseph and David in their time of temptation?
They ran opposite directions. Self-control.
You got it. You got it. You see, Joseph ran away. David ran toward. The Bible tells us you flee fornication. There may come a time, okay, I want you to think, in order for sin to happen, there's 3 things that's got to happen. There's got to be a desire, there's got to be an opportunity, and there's got to be a temptation. Okay, we talked about this a little bit last week. We were talking about self-control. Okay, now, as these 3 things have to all coincide. They have to all come together in order for sin to happen, right? You may have a desire, but if you don't have the opportunity, right, the sin's not going to take place. That sin. Or you may have a temptation, but if you don't have a desire, okay, you may have opportunity and temptation, but you have the desire, it's not going to happen. Hang on. You see the point? But guess what? When all 3 of those, when the time is just perfect and all 3 of those things come together, you better run. and you better run away. That's what I want you to remember. That's the only difference between Joseph and David.
Let me add amplified version. They go all wild. Run away from sexual immorality in any form, whether thought or behavior, whether visual or written. And that's the version.
Yeah. So now, Brother Ricky, what Brother Ricky said a while ago, Proverbs chapter 5 and verse 15, the prevention of adultery. He says, drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well. Should your springs be scattered abroad, streams of water in the streets? Let them be for yourself alone and not for strangers with you. Someone says, what is he talking about there? Well, he's about to tell you, let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in the wife of your youth. Okay? I want to tell you two things to prevent adultery. Number one is you got to keep loving the Lord. Someone says, well, why he said that? Because if you love the Lord, you're going to do what he says. And he's telling you what to do right here. And that's for the wife and the husband. Number two is you must keep loving your spouse. Keep loving your spouse. You look for love at home. You don't go out somewhere else. You don't go other places. You don't go out in the streets. You don't go out in the corner. You don't go by the harlot's house. Always be intoxicated with her love. I've got to move on because I'm in a hurry there. But don't think that you cannot be tempted by this. Don't think that you cannot fall to this. It says, many a victim has she laid low. All her slain are a mighty host. I want to end tonight. I'm going to read to you a story. A true story. There was a man who was raised in a godly home and had a loving father and mother. He had a younger brother and sister, and they were very close growing up. The brother and sister looked up to him. He was the oldest. He obeyed the gospel, and he fell in love with a Christian girl. They were married. He started his own business, and he worked with his brother. They were building houses. He was a good contractor. His business was going well. And in the course of time, he and his wife had 2 children. And they loved them very much. They had a nice little house. And thought they were living the American dream. He grew to the point of becoming a deacon in the church. He had a good reputation. Everything seemed to be going great for him. She took an interest in him, and he in her. She was also married and had a child, but that did not stop either of them from pursuing each other. The man did not guard his heart or his steps that he took. He should have run away from this woman, but he didn't. One thing led to another. Before long, he had a relationship going with this woman who was not his wife. He started spending more and more time away from his wife and his family. The husband of the woman that he was having an affair with found out that something was going on with his wife, and he went out to find her. He found them together, and in his wrath, he pulled out a gun and shot at the man who was with his wife. He did not know that if he killed the man or not. His jealousy was so strong he didn't care. He went to the house of the man that he shot at that night. and told the man's wife and children that he had caught her husband and his wife together and that he shot at him. Soon after this, they decided to leave both of their families and be together. 2 families were destroyed because of adultery. This Christian man, he left God, he left his wife, his 2 children, his physical family, his church family, and everything for this woman. This man, who was once a deacon in the church, ended up deserting everything in order to stay in this adulterous relationship. The adultery led to many other things, including deception, lies, drinking, smoking, cursing, bad business deals, even stealing money from his family. His mother and his father were heartbroken. He filed bankruptcy to keep from paying child support. I wish I could tell you that this man came to himself and changed his ways, but he didn't. The tragic story ended many years later in the death of this man by a massive heart attack. This man left a path of destruction, all because he did not run away from adultery. Don't ever think that it cannot happen to you or your family. This man was my father. Thank you.
Good evening. If you were not able to be at the auditorium last night, you missed a lesson that was full of some great points and some great things to think about. One of the things that hit me as I was thinking about what I was going to say up here tonight is, and this is kind of shows how my mind works sometimes. If I was to ask Lance, what is the recipe for fire? They talk about the fire triangle. I'm sure he knows nothing about that because he's never seen it before. But the fire triangle, it takes heat, oxygen, and fuel to get fire. And one thing we talked about in class tonight, we talked about fire at one point. You know, fire can be used for good, and fire can also be used for bad. You know, like we talk about when someone goes to down to the depths of Sheol, the fire that will consume them. Fire, you know, can you hold fire to your chest without burning your clothes? Well, no, because it's going to burn you. And as we're thinking about that, you know, you're thinking about what sin does to our lives. Brother Chris had a thing up on the bottom of one of his slides that really kind of stuck with me in talking about sin, that there was a recipe for sin. It's make sure I get this right: desire, opportunity, and temptation. If those three things come together, that leads us into sin. And I guess I'd never really thought about it in that way. So that's the reason I thought it would be one of my major points tonight is we catch ourselves in all kinds of situations sometimes, and we don't realize that we're either in a good situation or maybe we're in a not so good situation. And so we have to stop and think about, okay, you know, am I where I need to be? Is there opportunity here for something else? And is there a temptation there that could lead to sin? And so like I said, when I saw that point, and I appreciate Brother Chris bringing that up, it just really, it resonated to me. How sin can pop up or creep into our lives, and we may not even see it coming. We don't recognize those three elements coming together at the same time. Case in point, many of y'all know my job has had me working a lot of weekends for the past 2.5 months, and I've not been able to attend services on Sunday morning. Hey, I can handle this. It's just for 3 months. I can get past this and I can move on, and it's not a big deal. You know, I can still come on Sunday nights. You know, working late on Sunday, may not have time to show up, or just getting off and being so whipped and tired. Didn't always come on Sunday night like I should have. And I was thinking that, hey, I'm strong enough. I can handle this. I'm okay. And the good news is, number one, I started recognizing it, but also the good news is that I have a little bit of a change at work, and I'm back on a different schedule. So hopefully my weekend work will be all but cut out. So I know that's something I know me and my family are very thankful for, because you may not necessarily understand, or you may take for granted when we come together. But believe me, when you can't and you want to, you really miss it. But the more you stay away, the less and less that desire is, and sometimes it starts fading away to where you don't even recognize it anymore. And that's a condition that none of us ever want to get into. So tonight, the Lord's invitation is there for those who may not have put on the name of Christ, or for those who have and just need to repent of sin in their life and need to come back to Him. Here in just a moment, we're going to be standing, we're going to sing a song. And that is your opportunity to recognize that maybe you do have that sin in your life, or maybe you do recognize that temptation is knocking on your door, and you may need strength and you need help to overcome that. If you need If you need the help or the prayers of this congregation, please come now as we stand and as we sing.
He took my burdens all away up to the brighter day. He gave me a song, a wonderful song, a wonderful song I now can sing. In my heart joy bells ring. He gave me a song, a wonderful song, a wonderful song. He gave me a song, to sing about. He lifted me from sin and doubt. Oh, praise His name. He is my King. A wonderful song. He is to me. I am bleeding no more to die, never to say goodbye. He gave me a song, a wonderful song. And some of these days in that fair land, sing with a chorus friend. He gave me a song, a wonderful song. He gave me a song, to sing aloud. He lifted me from sin and doubt. Oh, praise His name. He is my King. A wonderful song. He is to me.
We have a few more announcements before we are dismissed tonight. First of all, remember those that are on the sick list. Made mention of baby Harlow, if you would remember him in your prayers. And also, we made mention of Rodica Miller, as well as Olivia traveling with baby Harlow. Remember her also. Kate is continuing at home, and hopefully everything's still going well there. Haven't heard any difference, so everything's good. Marshall Radcliffe is doing better, Chris did say. Also continue to remember Dolores Hatcher. Angie Alexander's improving, hoping to move to assisted nursing there, so if you would remember her again in your family. New one on the list, Garnet Melville, I think I said that wrong, Melville, Brother Wayne McLemore's daughter. Is in Michigan Hospital, heart condition and COPD, complications from those. So if you would remember her and the family there in your prayers. Also, the young man that was here, the older man that was here, Jimmy Ellis, lived in the area here, I guess, most of his life. But I guess he came, attended some here maybe when he was early on. But he lives in Trenton now. He did tell me that he lives in Trenton. But he would like the prayers of the church here for basically his family. His son is just newly married and I guess running into some kind of problems. And his daughter and his son-in-law, he said, are just running themselves ragged, I guess, trying to help with the rest of the problems with the family. And he has congestive heart failure, he said, and he's got arthritis and pain, and I noticed he was having a hard time getting out of the truck when he got here tonight. But he was just asking for the prayers of the congregation here. So if you would remember Jimmy Ellis as you offer your prayers. Also, we've been making mention of baby Trim. So he's started his radiation. He's got some time to go. I didn't know that they would have to put a baby to sleep to do that, but not good. I know the family's heart breaks every time something like that happens. So you would continue to remember the baby there and pray that all goes well. He's had a long battle, and I'm sure he's got a longer way to go. That's all I know of on the sick list. There are others. If you would make mention of that to me, we'll make that announcement Sunday. Our meeting starts Sunday. The time we've been looking forward to is finally here. So if you have not, we still have cards in the back that you can hand out to your friends and neighbors. But that will be the 15th through the 18th with Brother Ben Walker. If you would pray for them as they make their way to us this weekend. Pray for their safe journey. Also, Bartlett Church of Christ starting a meeting this Friday through Sunday. That's with Mark McCrary. Pleasant Plains, Eric Russell, Sunday through Wednesday, the 22nd through the 25th. And each of these meetings are at 7 p.m. Nightly. One other thing I failed to mention, I looked right over Larry Walker's uncle has passed away this last week. His funeral will be Saturday. His name was T. Joe. It's T and then Joe. So I thought I was hearing that wrong, but he said no, it's T. Joe. So his uncle. He said he was a short man. I can't imagine Larry growing up, but he was towering over him, I'm sure. But his funeral will be this weekend, and if you need more information, if you would see Brother Larry about that. Miscellaneous announcements we've got coming up. We have one more slot in the meal list at the back there. Needs to be filled this evening. So if you haven't taken a slot, if you would look at that and fill that list up. Also, we have the picnic coming up Saturday, 5:30. If there's more information needed about that, if you would see Miss Rhonda. Sandwiches, and also don't forget to bring your lawn chairs. That's one thing she did want to remind everyone. Tomorrow night, we have the men's Bible study, 6:30 here at the building. Come prepared, men. We're going to have another hard dose of Chris Travis leading us in that study. But I'm sure it will be good. Chris has done an excellent job for us, but that will be tomorrow night at 6:30. And that's all I have in the way of announcements. If you would, please be standing now. We'll ask Brother Ashley Brewer if he would to lead us in that closing prayer.